We're now live on YouTube.
All right, we're up on our website.
All righty. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. And I want to thank each and every one of our council members who've joined us, community board chairpersons and borough hall staff who are all on this Zoom today. This evening, we are pleased to be joined by the Bayside Smoke-Free Housing Alliance in New York City, Smoke-Free at Public Health Solution. Tonight's presentation will detail a resolution that calls for the landlords of existing and new apartment residential units to transition to a smoke-free apartment policy, something I've worked on for a very long time. Matter of fact, during my tenure as a council member, we had a resolution to push NYCHA to go smoke-free, and people thought I lost my mind, and then the federal government actually came out with the regulation. Never mind how that's being enforced, and we need to act how they're enforcing it. But the bottom line is that no matter what your socioeconomic status is, you should be able to live in a building smoke-free. And for those who don't understand this issue, in a lot of luxury housing buildings across New York City, they are smoke-free. So this is an issue that we should take on as we come out of COVID-19. And obviously we believe in civil liberties and having your right, but when your smoke impacts people in your building, that's a problem for all. So tonight's presentation will detail a resolution that calls for the landlords of existing and new apartment residential units to transition to a smoke-free apartment policy. The board will receive a presentation on the smoke-free multiple housing resolution, and then we will hold a Q&A session. After tonight's meeting, we will plan for a resolution for the board to vote on at a meeting in the near future. I want to now welcome Phil Konigsberg, and I got that right because I could never say his last name, who is the founder of the Bayside Smoke-Free Housing Alliance. Phil is accompanied by my good friend Eileen Miller, who is an adult nurse practitioner with the Bayside Alliance. Phil and Eileen are also joined by Lauren Saunders, who is the Queens Community Engagement Manager at New York City Smoke-Free at Public Health Solutions. Welcome, everyone. Hopefully you can get this Zoom presentation right, and y'all could take it away. This is about equity and justice as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Queens Borough President Donovan Richards. And I do want to just briefly introduce how we got to where we are today. Staten Island Community Board 3 passed the smoke-free resolution, smoke-free multiple housing resolution several years ago. I am very passionate about this and said, if Staten Island can pass a smoke-free resolution, why can't Community Board 7 do the same? Through a series of multiple visits to all community boards, every community board, with the exception of one, passed a smoke-free resolution. We went to other boroughs, and 6 years ago, almost to the day, the Brooklyn Borough Board passed a smoke-free multiple housing resolution, and that was actually signed by then Borough President Eric Adams. I'm now honored to be able to present this resolution and the rest of my team to the Queens Borough Board. And I would say we should go ahead with the presentation at this time. So Eileen, if you want to share the screen and we could start it. So we basically are going to give you some information here. Each one of us will present a few informations on what you're seeing. And we could tell you that right now, there are 9.6% of Queens residents smoke. we're concerned with children who are living in multiple housing. We know that 2,000 Queens public high schools.
Hold up 1 second, Phil. Eileen, click the button next to the minus sign. Slideshow. There you go. Click that. There you go. Now scroll up and start from your yard. And I think you're right where y'all are at. So
Okay.
All righty.
So we're really basically saying that most of the people are exposed to secondhand smoke is where they live in their homes. And so we're not talking about a few people, we're talking about several thousand. And Eileen, if you want to continue on.
So going smoke-free really matters. Multi-unit housings, the smoke, when it goes from one floor, it can travel through the whole building. There is no safe amount of secondhand smoke exposure. The home is the main place many children and adults breathe in secondhand smoke. Why smoke-free housing in New York City? Greatest concentration of multi-unit housing in the United States. 79% of all New Yorkers have already a no smoking rule in their homes, including 43% of all smokers. A recent poll of New York City found that 60% of people wanted to live in a place that prohibits smoking. Protecting your investment, it reduces property damage and prevents fires and avoids liability. Lawrence?
Eileen, yeah, just to add to that, there always was a survey that showed that even smokers prefer to live in a smoke-free environment. And so even some people who smoke, they would step outside because even they don't want smoking. Also, something that's important to know too, as the Queens Borough president kind of touched on, is that a lot of buildings are now going smoke-free. It is a way, and even as an amenity, as an attraction, buildings are saying we go smoke-free. And it has been proven that people would rather pay more rent to live in an environment that is smoke-free than to pay even cheaper rent to live in an environment where they're exposed to secondhand smoke.
Each year, an estimated 28 million multi-housing residents are exposed to secondhand smoke in their homes or apartments that came from somewhere else in the building. Do you know that secondhand smoke can travel in an apartment from ways that in common areas, through doorways, cracks in the walls, electrical lines, ventilation systems, and plumbing? Opening windows and using fan does not completely remove secondhand smoke. Heating, air conditioning, and ventilating systems cannot eliminate exposure to secondhand smoke. In fact, these systems can distribute the secondhand smoke throughout the building.
Yeah, I would also want to venture, you'll see in this slide that there's an organization, it's the leading organization for air conditioning and refrigeration, mostly for the ventilation systems and air purifying systems. They have each, every few years, come out with what they call a white paper. They're known as ASHRAE, and they say there is no ventilation system, no air purification system on the market that will eliminate secondhand smoke from indoors. The only way to assure that there is no secondhand smoke in a building is to not permit smoking in the building. So that's something that, is important to recognize. Okay.
Tobacco is the leading cause of preventable deaths in New York State. The ability to live in a smoke-free home is a choice that every New Yorker should have and be able to make. Those who live in multi-family buildings breathing in secondhand smokes from neighboring units have become a real health problem. Secondhand smoke exposure is dangerous at any levels. And like I said, it goes through the cracks in the walls and the ventilation under your doors. Exposure to secondhand smoke is toxic. All of you know this. Nobody, I'm sure that there's not one person here that doesn't know someone that died of lung cancer or a lung-related disease attributed to secondhand smoke. Exposure can cause heart disease, respiratory disease, and lung cancer. Secondhand smoke causes an estimated 41,000 deaths annually in the United States. That's a lot of people. Since 1964, approximately 2,500,000 non-smokers have died from health problems caused by secondhand smoke. Health problems caused by secondhand smoke: children, middle ear infections, disease in the middle ear, respiratory symptoms, impaired lung function, lower respiratory illness, sudden infant death syndrome, which is a big one. When you're walking in the hallway and you're smoking, if there's a little infant in that, behind that door that's living there, that smoke goes under the door, and their lungs are so tiny that even 2 puffs of a cigarette can cause havoc in that little child. In adults, it causes stroke, nasal irritation, lung cancer, coronary artery disease, and it affects the reproductive system in women, including low birth weight. All of this, if you want to know it, we have qualitative and quantitative reports that research has been done. So this isn't something that we're making up. We got all this research from scholarly articles, from scholarly researchers. We need to protect our littlest New Yorkers. Children's exposure to secondhand smoke is the highest in multi-dwelling housing. The biggest source of secondhand smoke is cigarette smoke. Causes more severe and frequent asthmatic attacks. If you ever went to an emergency room and saw a child having an asthmatic attack, believe me, it would be, you would definitely vote for this. It increases the risk of sudden infant death syndrome, bronchitis, pneumonia, and ear infection. The markers for secondhand smoke in children, 45% of graded, are included in the non-smoking multi-homes of children, more than children that are living in detached homes. Now
I was just going to show that some of you who've seen, I've been attending Zoom meetings before, know that I do use a respirator. And so this is something real for anyone who lives and has some respiratory issues. Secondhand smoke is just something you don't want to have to deal with. So I just let you know it does hit home, and it hits home for a lot of people. Okay.
Now, this is a picture of a little child. You see the smoke around that baby? He cannot have anything but toxins in his body. And he can't say no, get away. He's just breathing it in. Secondhand smoke is the silent killer and a silent toxin. Saving lives and protecting property. Lawrence?
Yes.
Lawrence?
Yes. Secondhand smoke, just there are so many negative things that can happen from it. Just not just the harmful effects directly to people, indirectly from the secondhand smoke, but also it has been proven to be the leading cause of fires. One of the leading cause of fires in New York City, like the second cause. Besides electrical, then you have secondhand smoke fires. And we can see 7,000 fires, 320 deaths, 750 injuries, and $314 million in loss. But just on another note, I want to just give a few statistics financially. Even from the state of New York, they take in revenue sales from tobacco excise taxes, $1.6 billion. Now, the CDC says that in order for New York State to combat smoking, that they should have a budget of about $203 million for the state to really combat it. Because you got a $1.6 billion that the state is taking in. CDC says that you need at least $203 million to combat it, but the funding from the state to the tobacco control program is only $39 million. So we're very short of the goal financially to even put a dent in, fighting against tobacco and secondhand smoke, which is why we're here today to advocate and really educate regarding the importance of this matter.
The other thing is third-hand smoke. So this is something that they just did some new research on. And it's chemicals that are left over after smoking can land on any surface in an area where smoking has taken place. These toxins can put you and your loved ones at danger. If you go years ago, not now, but years ago, if you went to a party, everyone was smoking and you came home and your mother or your family said, hey, wow, you smell like a cigarette factory, because that smoke sticks on your clothes. Third-hand smoke can be found in clothing, skin, car seats, chairs. In kids, the toxin can build up to a dangerous level in the body, leading to health and learning problems in some. For pets, the toxins can stick to the fur and be ingested when your pet cleans or grooms themselves. Current smoke-free housing in New York City, many buildings of smoke-free housing are in New York City. HUD, Public Housing Authority, NYCHA apartments, as Donovan mentioned, as of June 30th, 2018, has become smoke-free. North Shore Towers in Queens, which we were very instrumental in helping. They have 1,844 units, and they're a co-op. So that co-op all decided that no, they were not going to have smoking in their building, and they are 100% smoke-free. What they do allow is on their golf course. They allow it there. And the other thing is, we're not telling you that you shouldn't smoke. 50 feet away from the building, most buildings have set up a smoke station that people can go outside and smoke, where it's not affecting the people who live in the building. It's not like diabetic. If you want to drink and take sugary products, you can have a problem with your diabetes, but you're not giving it to anyone else. With smoking, you're actually causing someone else to breathe in that smoke, which is causing a problem for most New Yorkers. There is a smoke-free housing registry at smokefreehousing.newyorkcity.org, and you can look up and see which buildings are smoke-free. The other thing is, like Phil had said, we went and gave presentations to all 14 community boards, some 2 and 3 times, and most of them, except for one, has passed a resolution.
Can I interject something
Yes.
quick?
Go ahead.
To the Queens Borough president or all the council members that are present. So I represent NYC Smoke Free. We're a program of public health solutions. So basically what we do, we have community engagement, and we also have a youth component called Reality Check, and we operate within the 5 boroughs in New York City. I represent Queens. So what we do, we educate and advocate, of course, against tobacco. We have been instrumental in working with the state on the state level, on the local level, and also on the federal level, even with the implementation of the smoke-free housing and NYCHA complexes. We have helped in that area as well. So what we do is any building that you may have coming into your district that you may want to go smoke-free, or you want to adopt a smoke-free policy, what I do and what we do at NYC Smoke-Free, we help buildings go smoke-free. We provide all the technical assistance for helping buildings smoke-free. We've worked with council members, we've worked with state legislators, we work with borough presidents in the past to help buildings go smoke-free. So if you have any buildings, any properties that's coming up, or it's there that may want to go smoke-free, we can assist you in that. We can definitely help you. The process is free, and we can walk you through all of the steps, and that we can help your community become smoke-free. So if you need that information, my name will be, you'll see the information where you can reach out to me. If any one of you are interested, we were more than glad to help.
And
Thank you.
I'd like to also point out that the idea of having smoke-free apartment buildings, this is not saying that someone who smokes can't smoke anymore. It just means they can't smoke in that particular apartment. That's a common refute that we get when we speak to people about it. It's just like when people go into a restaurant or they go into a store, they can't smoke in those places. The same thing when you're in your home, when you're living in a multiple residence, you're affecting other people, just like if you were in a restaurant or a store. So that's something to consider. Eileen, you want to finish up?
Yes, in October 2021, 67 California municipalities have acted a law that prohibits smoking in 100% private units. This is really, this is all common sense. We really need to pass this. We really need to encourage people to do the right thing for the people that they're living with, especially the poor. The poor people, they don't really have a choice. A lot of these people in the housing, in the projects, I'm sorry to say it, but they don't really have a choice. And these people that are smoking, it's really not fair to them. COVID-19, people who are currently smoking or previously smoked are at an increased risk of developing severe illness if they get COVID-19. This is another reason why addressing the limited use of tobaccos and the harmful effects of its exposure remains as important as ever. Go ahead, Larry.
No, I was going to say, yeah, it's very important now because of COVID and these new variants. People who have smoked in the past or are smoking, their risk of increase has increased dramatically just because they smoke. So, because it does really affect the respiratory system. So, we've come together today to really stress this matter, and especially in a time we're all being affected by COVID in one way or another. But this is a really serious matter. And we know that helping New York City go smoke-free, providing a smoke-free environment, and it starts one borough at a time, one person at a time. So we've come here today to share this very important information with the hopes that a resolution, and smoke-free resolution, is adopted for the borough of Queens. Thank you.
And we want to thank you for allowing us to present to you today. We hope that you will be able to vote on this very important issue and add a resolution. We have made a sample for you to review, and it might help you and assist to making your own. And before I finish, I would like to say hi to all of my friends over there and to tell you all I miss you. Because I was chair a few years back of Community Board 11. So these are all my friends. And Donovan, thank you so much. God bless you all.
We wish we could be there in person with you. Hopefully, before too long, we will be able to attend the borough board meetings as well. Thank you for the time.
Good. Thanks everybody for the time. Again, we're definitely here to help. Again, my organization, we stand ready to work with everyone, the council members, Queens Borough President. We're delighted to offer our help and our assistance. And again, we do have a copy of a resolution, and you can make any changes and adaptations to make it fit into on your own wording, of course, that would be acceptable. So we'll be able to get that to you as well. Again, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
And one more thing, we have gone to apartment buildings. The four of us have gone with a PowerPoint presentation, and we had the people come to the lobby.
Yes.
These are the people that wanted, and spoke to them about quitting smoking and how they could initiate smoke-free housing in their buildings. And they were all very grateful. And we volunteered that because we know it's good. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Eileen. Do you mind? Thank you for your presentation. Can you, when you get now, could you please unshare your screen?
Oh, okay, sure. I'm sorry about that.
It's all right. We all getting used to
Thank
this
you.
and stuff. But let me thank y'all for your presentation, and I want to go to any folks who got questions. So just hit the raise hand function, and then we'll go to questions. All righty, we'll go to Gene Kelty, CB7.
Hi, Borough President. I heard the presentation, and Phil is one of my board members, and he did present it to our board. And I just want to be clear on certain things about this when they said that people took resolutions. you've got to look at the resolution. When we took it, we said that we passed a resolution to encourage landlords and homeowners to use a smoke-free atmosphere. We didn't make it mandatory because we felt that it would be very dictatorial to force people to do certain things. So I heard the presentation. I just want you to understand that when they make that statement, 13 of the community boards passed resolutions. You should look at the resolutions as far as it reads. We understand why you want to have smoke-free atmospheres. We do understand that. But ours was 18 to 17 in favor of a resolution. So it was a tough battle that we had because we just felt putting a forceful burden on landlords and stuff was a problem. Doesn't mean we were not interested in what was going on. We were. But I also will tell you, like they said, like, well, the people can go outside the building and smoke 50 feet from outside the building. That's very nice until it's 14 degrees standing outside the building. If you're going to do anything, then do like they did before years ago in the airports, and they had actual rooms for the people to smoke in, vented to the outside, so that at least we encourage to be somewhat reasonable to the people. Look, it would be nice if nobody smoked. It'd be nice if nobody drank. It'd be nice if nobody used drugs. It'd be nice if we went back to horses and carriages, but that's not going to happen in the real world. So if we can minimize the impact, I agree with the resolution and stuff. I just want to make sure we don't pin ourselves into a corner too closely to make sure that it becomes unrealistic. We want to get
and this is advice. And Gene, just to get to your point, you're correct, and this is advisory. You know, because any recommendation. And let me just say this: I used to chair zoning for the council, and you know, this is an amenity. So a lot of developers actually who are putting up new units around the city actually are, you know, even without a regulation, moving towards smoke-free housing because it actually makes the buildings more appealing for folks they're trying to bring in. And, you know, I've done a sizable amount of development even in the Rockaways where most of those buildings have all smoke-free policies as well. And we could always get into the question of whether and how it's enforced. And you know, obviously we're not asking the police department to show up to people's doors to arrest them over smoking. But if we can ensure that, you know, people, you know, who have children, senior citizens who live in places, you know, those, you know, who do have respiratory issues, as COVID-19 has pointed, you know, has definitely impacted our communities across the city. If we can work toward that. So I just making that point to say.
I agree 100%, Borough President. I do. As I said, it just seems like when they said, well, they can smoke outside, that's very nice until it's very cold weather, raining, snowing.
Right. And you're correct on that, because I was in, for instance, Paris, and they actually have specific places where you go, like if you want to smoke, they have actual places within their developments where they've set aside and it's enclosed and you're not impacting the health and
vented and correctly so nobody else gets to smoke outside. Yes, correct.
Exactly.
Thank you.
You know, it's not rocket science. Only if government could figure this out and developers could figure it out, you would have designated smoking areas, in which they even have at airports, as you alluded to as well. So, all right. So we're going to go to the next person. I will go to Dolores.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the presentation. I have 2 questions, comments. One in terms of smokers stepping outside. I live in a multi-unit building, and we are fortunate enough to have balconies, which I would love to see all affordable housing with balconies, so people have outdoor space attached to their home. But here's the issue. So I have neighbors that are smokers, and most of the time they do step outside, but depending on the direction of the wind, the smoke comes to me. So it is important when we're looking at that we make sure it's in an area that will not affect anyone else. Even though they step outside not to have it in their home, they wind up putting it into other folks above, below, and adjacent. The other thing I was wondering about, with all of the affordable housing that's being built in the city of New York, since it is the federal government has mandated it for NYCHA housing, and affordable housing is being built with taxpayer money, is there any way to mandate that any affordable housing that goes up is in fact smoke free? And if we're not able to do that, is there at least a way to give an incentive to any developer building affordable housing if they were to declare their project to be smoke-free?
I'm about to make
Well-
you the HPD commissioner.
I would take
Because
it in a
quite
minute.
frankly, I was having this discussion with HPD in 2016, 2017, in which I said to them, if we're subsidizing housing, how is it that we allow, people to smoke? And
Right.
it was very controversial when I brought this bill up. It was like page 1 Daily News. And I actually had proposed NYCHA go smoke-free. And the city balked at that. They thought I was and I actually carried that bill. So if there's some council members on this line, you may want to look at that bill again and reintroduce it, because I actually carried the bill, Dolores, on exactly what you said. Because I thought if we're putting taxpayer dollars into these buildings, we got to stick here. We can use it to push folks to move towards smoke-free housing, but there really wasn't a political will. And then subsequently, after I introduced that bill, when everybody thought I was nuts, NYCHA came out with a federal regulation saying their buildings should go smoke-free. And once again, we can argue on enforcement and if that's happening at all. I highly doubt it's actually happening. But the point is to move the barometer, we gotta have the conversation and move it forward. And I will credit a lot of developers because they understand that this is an amenity and actually moving towards smoke-free housing. So yes, Dolores, we can pass legislation on this. It's all about political will, and maybe this is a conversation we could re-entertain with the new mayor, who's been someone, definitely focused on food and health and wellness. Today he was in a cooking kitchen, and maybe we could reestablish this conversation with him, rehash this conversation with him moving into the future. And once again, this is not about being a nanny state, but it's really about ensuring that we take care of our neighbors, right? And it's unfair to people who have shared ventilation systems, who have to endure, the person smoking next door to them, which impacts them. So yes, it can be regulated. It's just, is there the political will to make it happen?
So the only other thing I would like to suggest is on the state level, with all the tax dollars the state receives from the sale of cigarettes, there should be a mandated percentage of that revenue going back to stop smoking campaigns. And I don't know what that percentage would be, but I would love to see the state allocate a good sum of money, not the little bit that they do, back to
Yes.
stop smoking.
Yeah, well, just again, the statistics say that New York State should have $203 million to combat it. They're only allocating $36 million to programs like my program to help. But what I want to answer your question too is that unfortunately, buildings are not mandated by the state to go smoke-free, but local legislators play a very important part in that. Like if you have new buildings coming into your community, you can advocate. It's easy. It's really easy when buildings are coming into a community, and it's easier to operate like that with the state legislator. When we normally have buildings go smoke-free, we'll work with council members. We'll work with different legislators at the state level to help it go smoke-free. But there's still a way to get existing buildings to go smoke-free too. Of course, it has to 2/3 of the building has to at least be in compliance to do it, and then there's a lot of other steps like surveys and things like that we can help provide technical assistance for buildings to go smoke-free. So all hope isn't lost, even with buildings that do exist with smoking, but we can definitely help. Again, I agree with you. Definitely, we wish they allocated more funding, but there's things that we can do like on a grassroots level, like organizations like mine, to work with council members, work with community boards, work with borough presidents, and hopefully, again, like as the Queens BP said regarding the mayor, he is a big advocate for health. So we're really hoping to work with him as well. A lot of the new housing, a lot of the developments that are going up, even businesses, we help businesses adopt tobacco-free outdoor policies. So all of this adds up to a better, easier breathing New York. And the only thing too, just in closing about the smoking on balconies and smoking in a certain part of a building, just have to be careful because again, smoke travels. So if it's associated to the building, again, I don't care, or we have a special ventilation system. No ventilation system can keep secondhand smoke from getting out. You know, they have 7,000 different chemicals and carcinogens. All these things are deadly in smoking. So it's going to get out. It's going to affect if it's in the immediate area. There should be no smoking in common areas according to the law in New York City. Smoking in common areas in buildings are forbidden. So you can't say, okay, you just go in the lobby, go in the vestibule, go. So it's things that can be done. But until we do have the funding from the state, I think that a meeting like this and working with all our legislators here is something that's very important, and we can help with that.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Great. Thank you, Dolores.
you.
We're going to head to Vincent, then Frank.
Yes, thank you. My friends at the Borough Board have heard from me before, and the question of many of the multiple dwellings are co-ops and condos, and each one of those units are the same as a private home. And the government should not be telling us what we can or cannot do in our private home. The next thing is the blowback. If this thing went to court, we'd lose the zoning requirement that no more than 3 unrelated persons may live in a private dwelling unit. You tell me I couldn't live with my boyfriend or my other ones, you know, if that was my choice. So this thing has got to be unconstitutional. We should be, as the gentleman said before, encouraging multiple dwelling units to go smoke-free. I agree with that. I'm suffering from the World Trade Center clinic with my lungs, but that's something different, you know? So I don't think we can do this constitutionally, but we should be encouraging multiple dwellings. And if we're providing city housing, a requirement for living in city housing would be no smoking. But you can't tell a co-operator or a condo owner what to do in their private home.
Well, the only thing I could say is that North Shore Towers, they all went in and they are totally smoke-free, and it's a co-op.
They elected to do it. That's okay.
Yes.
But you can't, the government can't tell them to do that.
Well, like it's a resolution, it's not mandatory.
Right.
That's
Well,
what
Vincent,
I want to bring back.
we're not forcing anyone. The state is not forcing anyone. Like my organization, we've helped co-ops and condominiums.
If you're presenting a resolution that says no smoking in multiple dwelling units, and that include condos and co-ops,
right?
That's telling them what they can or cannot do with their private property.
Well,
You
the
have to
other thing-
exempt, if you want to exempt co-ops and condos,
No.
and talk about rental units or NYCHA housing, go right ahead.
Yeah, but we're not
The thing is
forcing.
about health. It's about the health of the
Right.
community.
It's not
we don't want-
forcing anyone. It's
The
not.
health
It's
of-
like it.
The health
but-
of the community,
All right,
you could
Vincent.
say,
All right, we ain't
No,
going to
no.
get into that back. Let
but
them
the health of the community,
All
you could say you can't live with someone that you're not related to.
right. Okay, so let them answer, Vincent. Thank you.
Can I just bring us back to the point? This is a resolution. This is not a something that's being proposed as a law here.
All right, it's not law.
I would be fooling you to say I wouldn't like another step down the road that it is legislation, but our intent here tonight is exactly what it is. It's a resolution, just like when we came to your board a couple of years ago.
Yep.
We
And
made it clear, it's a resolution. That's all we're asking for tonight.
And you
Great.
did vote on a resolution, which we were very pleased at.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move to now Frank.
Okay, I was getting intrigued with the conversation there. Vincent, I understand your point there. I'm a retired correction officer, 22 years. When Rikers went smokeless in the 90s, there was quite a difference in asthma, cancers for inmates and officers. It was a different type of environment. So I kind of like this, but I understand what you're saying. But as a property owner, people pay a maintenance fee, and the maintenance fee can always be played with back and forth as far as what is there and what is not, because there's damage being done to properties. Just to add that on, and I'm one of your World Trade brothers also. I'm a first responder for the World Trade. I was down here before the second plane hit, so it's good to meet you. My question is simply this. I'm Frank Taylor, Queens Community Board 3 Chair. The older buildings in my community of North Corona, I guess East Elmhurst also, and Jackson Heights, we have older buildings. Corona has a lot of 3 families, different things like that. How can that actually change to a smokeless building without putting pressure or financial, which you guys haven't answered anything about the financial, how to do this with the landlord? Because I understand this is a resolution, so it's not the law. But if a landlord wanted to put this into their building and they have a 3-unit, let's say a 4-unit, a 2-unit, how would the landlord be able to do that without taking on all this financial responsibility?
So what he would do is he'd incorporate it into his lease.
Right.
To the
It
lease
does.
of tenants.
It
And
doesn't.
they
Yeah.
grandfathered, in some of the buildings, they
Right.
grandfathered people in. So in
Right.
other words, if you've been living there 40 years, they're not going to, it's the new people coming in that we start a new trend, new ones coming in. The
Right.
lease says no smoking policy.
Right.
Okay, but my point is the landlord would still have to designate a spot, because you're not going to say just the whole building, no smoking. I think another gentleman brought it up. It's 10 degrees outside. They're not going to go outside, and these things are very hard to enforce.
But Frank,
Wait a minute, 1 second, sir.
Mhm.
In a 3-unit building, the landlord would have to maybe build out or do something different where something can be encased or another room. Who's going to subsidize this landlord if he has to incur that extra expense?
Well, Frank, it wouldn't be they're going to build another. Again, this is voluntary. Any smoke-free, besides those HUD laws that's from the federal level, these policies are voluntary. So it's based on if you have a building of 300 people and you get 200 people, they do a survey, we give out a survey. How many would you like this building to go smoke-free? If you get 2/3 of the building say, we want to go smoke-free. So if you have 3 apartments, and there's 9 people, 3 people in each apartment, 6 people or 6 apartments or 2 apartments say we want to go smoke-free, and the landlord is in favor of it, then the building, if they sign it, the building can go smoke-free. They won't, and the building have, because based on the majority and the landlord or the property manager, and then we provide technical assistance. It's free. It wouldn't cost them anything. It's just like, hey, the majority rule, the people have spoken, the building wants to go smoke-free. And then you have to go with the landlord, you would have to go with what the majority of the people say. Because again, smoking is a nuisance. It's like if you're living in a building, 3 o'clock in the morning, people blasting their music. So I could do what I want to do. I'm paying my own rent, so nobody can stop me. But your music is affecting me. I can't sleep. So your smoke.
There's a noise ordinance that's breaking the law after a certain time. That's the law.
But I'm saying,
So
okay.
And I'm not talking about 200 or 300 people. I'm
Right.
talking about the small landlord that
Right.
owns a 3-family brownstone.
Again, but Frank, it's not a law. Remember, this is a voluntary. If they don't want to accept it, then they don't have to do it. That's it. We just letting people know there's an option where they can go smoke free. You know, it is free. Some people are not aware of it. They think you live in a building. You know, we've worked with buildings that didn't have any knowledge of it. And we go and we do a presentation as we're doing and giving them all of the everything, answer all of their questions to the board first and do to the members. And again, it's totally voluntary. None of this is law. None of this is a legislation. If the building, if you're interested, you can adopt a policy. If you're not, then you don't have to do it.
Real quick, if I could address this, Frank, you mentioned financial. Financial, we didn't really make that much of a presentation on that tonight, but financially, it's better for the landlord for going smoke-free rather than having a smoking permitted building. One, the risk of fire is substantially reduced. The time, if it's a rental property, when the landlord flips the apartment, when there's a new tenant coming in, their cleaning expenses are major, significantly reduced, because you don't have to clean the apartment where the smoke is on the wall, in all the ventilation, the entire property. And people, and Lawrence, you could back me up on this, people are willing to pay a higher rent if the apartment is smoke-free. It's at a premium. And that's why you're getting a lot of buildings going smoke-free.
Right. So Frank, one of the things, as he said, in terms of if you see a ventilation system where from a person who in an apartment who smokes compared to one who don't smoke, when you turn that building over, that apartment over, you'll see the corrosion. Then again, one thing Eileen touched on is third-hand smoke. Third-hand smoke is still another thing that when smoke permeates through in paints and then get in fabrics and carpets and those things like that, those are still hazards to someone who lives in there. So when you don't have to deal with that, it's much easier to, attract people, and it's a much healthier environment for the next person who's moving in, and it's saving tons of money for the building manager or the landlord.
I just want to say to you, I appreciate this presentation, and Borough President, I appreciate you bringing this to us. And I'm a believer. I own several properties, and I've already texted my attorney to start making leases like this. So
we can help you with that.
Well, Frank, if you need any help, if you need any help with that, look, hit me up.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'm a believer.
Thank you.
Awesome. All righty, we're going to go to Maury now.
Hello, Borough President.
Congratulations, Frank. We didn't congratulate you on being the new chair. Congratulations on becoming the chair of CB3. New chair.
Thank you. That means so much coming from a gentleman like yourself, who I have so much respect for. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's go to Maury.
Thank you, Borough President.
Other new chair.
Yes, thanks. Appreciate you bringing this up, and congratulations to my neighbor Frank in CB3. I'm in CB2, and I just wanted to chime in here real quick. And I was reminded when we were just having that conversation before of the old saying, which nobody seems to know who actually said it. The right to swing your fist ends where my nose begins. And there is that idea, when I was growing up, my dad smoked a pipe all growing up. To this day, I have asthma and allergies, and I'm sure it's not in a small part because of that. So if you have a neighbor that's, smoking and they're in their home, unfortunately, just like when we had restaurants that had a smoking section and a non-smoking section, the smoke doesn't know which section is which. And, I live in a pre-war building, and when someone in my building is smoking, it comes up through the wood floors, and it's swinging fists and noses. So I think this is a bigger issue there. And also, when you have children, they don't get a choice, even if their parents are the ones that are choosing to smoke. And I think it's something, again, as this is advisory and we're giving people an option. I wholeheartedly support it, and I thank you for bringing this to the Borough Board, Mr. VP.
Thank you. All right, any other questions, comments, or concerns?
I just have one thing to add, that I used to smoke and I loved it. And I
Yeah.
really did. 30 years ago, I smoked 2 packs a day and I really enjoyed it. So, you know what? And then when I realized, and it was so hard for me to quit, it was the hardest thing I ever did in my life. And so it's not that I don't know how bad it is to smoke. I just finally realized that, hey, I want to live a while longer and I don't want to wind up with all these sicknesses.
And I smoked in high school for 2 weeks until I ran out of money. Then I realized it's an expensive habit, so I quit.
Yeah.
And I didn't inhale. All right, we'll go. Gene, do you have another question?
Yes, thank you, Borough President. I heard what they said about the smoke going through the floors and stuff, and I understand that. I just want to remind them as well that I was the chief of the New York City Fire Department, and the technology is a lot better out there for places in the building to make it accessible for those that don't want to smoke and those that want to smoke. I could exhaust a 100-story building in less than 5 minutes of the smoke. So let's put that into reality, because the way they talk about everything, the way the smoke is going through the building and everything, there are machines out there and ventilations if the landlords or the business owners want to put it in. That's all I just want to say. There are alternatives out there. That's why I think the smoking room in the basement would be more acceptable to work with the people and make it much better for the other people in the building, knowing that they know the person will go downstairs and not smoke in their apartment. That's all.
Thank you for that, Gene. We'll go to Kenichi. Kenny.
Thank you, Borough President. Hello, everyone. Hey, Eileen, long time no see.
Hi, how are you? Nice to see you.
I just wanted to say I used to be a heavy smoker, 3 packs a day. I was the type of person that I couldn't stand not having a pack with me. I had a carton in my car, I had a carton in my work truck, my desk at work, everywhere. But I decided to quit smoking when I had my first kid, because I didn't feel that, I didn't want to be in that position where, I would subject my child to smoke or even leave my child unattended to go outside to smoke, to be away. And, that's my general consensus or feeling was, I don't want to subject anybody else to me wanting to smoke. In my district, the CB9, obviously, especially Kew Gardens, there's a lot of pre-war buildings. I would get so many complaints of someone smoking too much, or maybe they might be smoking something else. I think also the focus is how do you enforce this? I had superintendents coming to me saying, well, I have tenants complaining to me that there's smoke coming out of this particular apartment. How do I prove that it's tobacco or maybe other tobacco and so forth? And it became a problem. It became a problem between tenants themselves, one accusing the other one saying, I'm just cooking something that may smell similar. And, I get it, smoke free. I actually quit smoking. I miss it. Maybe one of these days I may go back to it, but I don't like smelling smoke in my face as I'm walking down the street or so on and so forth. So, my concern would be also to, how do you enforce this, that it doesn't become, pressure on someone else, like a landlord, that one tenant saying, well, I'm not going to pay your rent because someone's smoking there in their apartment. You kind of understand what I'm saying? It's been a sticky, kind of sensitive subject. And I'm kind of curious on, what you feel about that.
Well, I could tell you from what I understand it is that it's peer enforced. People who live in the building, as you said, a lot of people, so very few people smoke at this point. It's the people that live there that if they know they're empowered, that they're living in a building that it's smoke free, they will put pressure on that, hopefully that individual not to smoke. Landlords can, put pressure on them, but mostly, and Lawrence, if you have more on this.
Yeah, so it's pretty much peer enforced, and also the building. So the way, like, if we have a building go smoke free, what happens is the building can come up with their own type of enforcement. Like just an example, some buildings would do first a verbal warning. Then the second one could be a written warning. Some buildings do a little financial, there's a fine. And if it keeps going out, the building kind of put wording together in their leases, and they do things that according to how they want to actually handle the situation. So again, it can range from written verbal fines until even to if it gets to a certain place that your lease can be terminated if it gets to a certain place. But the buildings pretty much, the landlords pretty much, or building property manager, they actually make up the rules for enforcement. So we just give them like ideas or whatever, but then whatever they want to come up with, some buildings start out, the first fine is $100 or $200. So, and again, the way it works, basically, if a neighbor say you've been smoking, and now some buildings, some buildings there are some type of detective systems where they can tell if you're smoking. But mostly it's person. If you live next door to me, you're smoking, I'm going to report it. Yeah, this person is smoking. So again, so it's basically peer enforced or property manager or landlord enforced, and they come up with their own enforcement rules.
Right. Any other comments? Did I answer your question, Kenny?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. All right. All right. Any other comments, questions, or concerns? All right. Seeing none, I want to thank everybody for attending today's Borough Board meeting. I want to thank Phil, Eileen, and Lauren for today's presentation. And we look forward to your return at one of the upcoming meetings. I also want to thank my staff here from Borough Hall for planning this meeting and onward and upwards in getting this resolution passed. Thank you, Maricela, and to everyone else who put this together. Khalil, thank you.